master fiend seats himself at the controls, grasps the magic knobs, and peers out into the darkness of the cosmos. He is at the controls of the 707 of life and is ready to play upon your psyches as upon a vast Wurlitzer organ of existence. Oh, the chief is on hand. Yeah, here he is, the star of our show, the man you've been waiting for. You know, the funniest unconscious idea, the unconsciously funny, I might say, hello, test. The funniest unconscious bit of humor I've heard in years is the announcement that was made the other day that there would be a musical called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's a fun musical starring Kirk Douglas. It kind of adds a little soupçon of humor to it, say, and that opens up whole new vistas of ideas for musicals. I mean, fantastic vistas. And I've got a new idea for a musical. If you're listening, David Merrick, I would like to sing one of the tunes that me and my partner Sammy wrote up for this big musical. You'll have to make excuses for my voice, but we got an idea for a musical here. See, the curtain comes up, and you can see the curtain rising up. You see all these file cabinets, see, in there. Burt Reynolds steps forward and says, I am Daniel Ellsberg. I stole the Pentagon Papers. Yeah. Oh, I am a hero of the left. I'm a darling of the hippies. My mother, she calls me Danny every night, long distance from Brooklyn. I am Daniel Ellsberg. I stole the Pentagon Papers. Yeah. And I ain't sorry. I'm glad that I did it. And I'd do it. Yeah, I'd do it all over again. Oh, I am a good guy. And I think nothing but clean thoughts, yeah. Me and my friends. Oh, I am Danny Ellsberg. Yes, and I stole them bad old Pentagon Papers. I called the managing editor of the Times, New York Times, and I told him I got a great big story. Yeah. At this point, there's dancing. See, Dan, I want to listen to this, Mr. Merrick. See, we come out dancing, and all these chicks are holding up big signs to say all the news that's fit the print. It's fantastic. And at that point, Debbie Reynolds comes out, and she's playing Pat Nixon. And Burt Reynolds looks over at her. Remember, he's playing Danny. And he sings, oh, I hate war. Yeah, I don't like all that shooting and that bombing, all that bad bombing. What I like is P-E-A-C-E, peace. My name, oh, I repeat, is Danny Ellsberg. Now they call me Daniel in some quarters. But they don't know me like my friends know me, and they call me Danny. I want you to call me Danny, gang. I'm Danny, little Danny Ellsberg. Now tonight, at this point, Mr. Merrick, see, there's a lot of newsreels come on. You see a lot of people demonstrating and all. It's fantastic visual effects. See, we have fireworks going off, all that. And you see Jane Fonda come out on the stage. And by the way, we got a great gal. We got Julie Andrews to play Jane in this thing. It's fantastic. We got her already in the contract, see. At that point, Bert turns to her and says, he's down on one knee. Yeah. Oh, I say, I want you all get behind me. I don't want nobody to misunderstand me at all. At all. I've always read the good old times, and they've been wonderful, so wonderful to me. Oh, me and my friends are going to entertain you tonight, folks. We're going to sing and dance. We're going to talk about all those good things like truth and beauty, peace and war. But remember! Oh, see how you like that. You kind of like that? Yeah, great idea for a musical. That would be a fantastic musical. You listening, Mr. Merrick? I know who could play the lead. I am Danny Ellsberg, and I sold them old Pentagon Papers. Just a lot of paper. But oh, what a stir it caused. A lot of tea. And by the way, you ought to see the second act. I'm not going to tip my hand because there's a lot of writers for Milt Kamen listening. And I ain't going to tip my hand, but let me say this. It's fantastic. Any of you out there would like to hear the second act? Would you like to hear the second act? No, we'll keep that. Don't you think that's a fantastic idea, though? Kirk Douglas playing Dr. Jekyll Mr. Hyde. I wonder what he sings when that stuff bubbles. You know, that'd be a fantastic moment. Would you give me maybe we'll preview that. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I can just see what it's like. Yeah, folks. My name is Jekyll. They call me Doc. My name is Dr. Jekyll. I'm a mad scientist. I cook up all kinds of bad stuff. And watch me when I mix up this little itty-bitty brew. Yeah! Ho, ho, ho! You watch this now, folks. My name is Dr. Jekyll. Sometimes in the low drives of London they call me Mr. Hyde. But that comes later in the second act. Oh, I dream of eternal life. Like Mr. Goethe, I dream of becoming some kind of a real big monster. Yeah, I'll wander the streets late at night. And I'll be wearing my checkered cape. Oh, they called me Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. Now we may sound like a second-rate vaudeville team to you, but really we're a classic. Oh, they call me Dr. Jekyll, and they call me Mr. Hyde. At this point, there's a scene, see, Mr. Merrick, in this fantastic laboratory. You got all these chorus girls playing test tubes, and all these bubbles are coming out of their heads. At that point, Kirk dances out, see, he's wearing that red cape, and he sings. The time has arrived to drink my magic potion. Yeah, I'll put just a little drop of this goo-goo in this little old test tube here. Yeah. Oh, look at that. It's bubbling up. And at this point, we'll do a little titration and add just a little wee drop of sulfur hydrochloramide. And then we'll stand back and watch it bubble. Oh, yeah. Just like Alka-Seltzer. It'll bubble and it'll steam and it'll hiss. And now I'll drink it. Here we go, folks. I'm going to drink it down. Here I go. I'm Mr. Hyde. Yeah, I'm Mr. Hyde. Look at all that hair all over my head. Hey, I got claws. I'm coming out at you. I'm Mr. Hyde.
I used to be Mr. Jekyll. Now I'm Mr. Hyde. Yeah, I'm a killer. I used to be this doctor walking around listening to peoples with them stethoscopes, but now I'm Mr. Hyde. And I'm gonna have this chick sitting right on my knee, and I'm gonna just, yeah. Well, you can call me Mr. H.Y. Y-H-Y-D-E. Hyde, that's the name. Baba doo-doo-doo, Baba. Or they call me Mr. Hyde. And I'm Mr. Hyde, and I ain't Jekyll tonight. I've been drinking all that jazzy google with the bubbles. And I'm gonna come out after you. I'm walking the streets tonight. Yeah.
Oh, I say to you friends, life can be cruel. When you're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we shuffle off to Buffalo, singing our song, playing our banjos, carrying our little bag of tricks. Good night, folks.
Gee, that was great. That was fantastic. Oh, I shuffle off to Buffalo. Rinky-dinky, rooty-toot-toot-tooty-toot. Oh, vow-to-vow-dee-doo-dee-doo, dee-doo. Did you like that? Well, I want to hear a little applause. I mean, when you're singing out there on the stage with Gwen Verdun behind you, you expect at least a smattering of polite applause. Would you please give me a little cheering from the balcony there, please? That's fine. That's what it's all about. Showbiz. Woo-wee. This is WOR New York. Boy, that's kind of catchy. I'm Danny Ellsberg. Isn't that kind of great? Listen, we have a couple of little commercials here, friends. So sit upon my knee, and I'll tell you about General Tires. You need any of them? Yeah, well, you know, if that thump is starting in the back of your car again, I suggest you see your local General Tire headquarters, because they're handled. Yeah, they'll handle all your tire and automotive service needs quickly and economically. They'll do everything except make the payments in your car. Wouldn't that be groovy? Remember, from sports cars to sedans, compacts to limousines, General makes the tires you need, and at prices even you, poor old you, can easily afford. You can choose from rayon, nylon. It sounds like you're buying a pair of socks. You can choose from rayon, nylon, at polyester cord. That's the new stretch tire constructions. Glass-belted new car tires. They're beautiful. And they're so nice and round. They're really nice. You look for the big red General Tire G for these lovely tires. And in Freeport, is that place down in the islands where they do all that gambling? I mean, out in the Caribbean, is that it? In Freeport, ask for John or Jack Miles. J&J Miles Rubber Company, 160 East Merrick Road. Is that named after David? Is that Merrick Road named after the big one? The Big Merrick? The Big Merrick in the sky? The Big M? Oh, I am Danny Ellsberg. Rinky-tinky-tinky-tinky-tinky-tink. And I eat every night at the House of Chan. And I dig all that sweet and sour wonton soup. Rudy-doo, rudy-doo-doo-doo. You like that, don't you? Oh, I can do that to anything. You want me to do a commercial there? Give me that music again, please. I'll sing the House of Chant commercial for you. Just bring it on. Just bring it on real good. That's it. Yeah. This is mysterious, see? Oriental music. Yeah. Oh, so, Hage. Hola. I eat every night at the House of Chant. I love that soup. And I always go to 7th Avenue up at the 2nd Street. Hold it there. That thing is running out. Yeah, all kidding aside, they have great food at the House of Chan. And they're one of the best Chinese restaurants, Oriental type, in the entire city. And they're at 52nd and 7th. They've been there for 35 years, and they're getting tired of waiting for you. 35 years shifting from one foot to the other. Waiting for you to get down there. They got a bar. The food is good. They're open 7 days a week. And if you're going to a show or something, you know, if you're going to go see the Ellsberg Papers with incidental dialogue by Neil Simon, I would suggest that you go down there and just tell them you're going to the theater, and they'll have that stuff ready for you. It's good. House of Chin, 7 days a week, and are open to midnight. 52nd and 7th. Hey, listen, speaking of great musical events, we have to salute we just have to salute a fellow victim. Once you get bitten by the kazoo bug, there's just no turning back. I've seen people, I've just seen people lose their homes, their families, their wives divorce them, lose their job, because they have an insensate desire to play the kazoo at the wrong moments. Did you read what happened in Kingman, Arizona, of all places? I mean, you've seen scenes, in the Old West. That's in the Old West, Kingman, Arizona, You know who Kingman was, don't you? It wasn't Don Kingman, the painter. Oh, no, this was a bad gunman. Played out there in Arizona years ago. He was even a better shot than Jack Palance. And, and you know how it is in the Old West. You've seen millions of movies of the Old West where the guy walks into the Silver Dollar and they have the guys are all sitting around playing Old Maid. Isn't that what they play? What is that card game they're always playing? Those guys with the black hats. Old Maid? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Old Maid, yeah. It's funny, yeah, well, that's what I don't know. What is the card game they play out there, Lee? What are you reading? So you don't know what game it is. Well, you know that the gunfights always break out over. You don't know what game they're playing there? Pittsburgh Rummy, of course. That's what they play. And, why I know all these things, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I wish I didn't. It would help me a lot. But just the other day, a little drama, the Old West broke out in Kingman, Arizona, in a pool room. Now, pool rooms, you associate that with Jack Palance and, shooting it out with Gary Cooper, right? Well, Michael Burke walked tall and thin, lank, mean, wearing his Levi vest, the whole bit, and his spurs clanking, walked into the Sportsman's Tavern in Kingman, Arizona, and accidentally dropped his kazoo down one of the pockets of the coin-operated pool table. He dropped his kazoo down the pocket of a coin-operated pool table. I think of this for a minute. And what he did then, of course, he did what any good kazoo player would do. I mean, you don't lose your kazoo that quick. That's where they got that expression, blow it out your own bazoo. And I used to say to my mother, she used to say that, blow your own bazoo, nobody will blow it for you. And I used to say, Ma, it's kazoo. She said, well, the way I heard it, it's bazoo. So we never did straighten that out. But nevertheless, Michael Burke, I wonder if that's the guy that owns the Yankees. I hope he, with all the hanky-panky that's going on in the pitching staff there with the Yankees, I hope this isn't the forerunner of the season to come. You've been hearing about that hanky, I am a Yankee left-hander, and I'm as cuckoo as a jaybird, as they all are. Oh, I say to you, they ought to ban left-handed pitchers from the league. Here we go. Yeah. I just signed a contract with the Yankees, and I'm a left-hander, and I come out of Utah, and I got a mean curve. Yeah, I got a nice spitter. Yeah, and I got a kind of good change of pace, and I'm a left-hander with the Yankees. Now, I'll tell you this, years ago, I married this little old gal when I was playing the guitar and played a banjo in a little place down in Calumet City, Illinois. And I went on the road, learned to play ball, and now, oh, I am a Yankee left-hander, and I'm having a hell of a lot of fun. Life as a Yankee left-hander can be exciting, and I'm very glad I got a damn good lawyer. Yeah. And I said to Yogi, I want to play with the Yankees. That's where the action is. I'm glad I'm not a Pittsburgh Pirate. And I said to my old roomie, also a left-handed pitcher for the Yankees, I said to him, Daddy, let's stir up the pot a little bit. Now, he's kind of good old boy, chews gum, bop-a-doo. Not a bad slider, pretty good change of pace. Ain't no control, but
Ba-ba-da-dee-dee-dee. That's censored. Da-doo-doo-doo. Ba-ba-doo-dee-dee-dee-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Oh, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Ba-ba-ba-da-doo. Oh, here comes the... Hi. I'm a Yankee, and I wear that big number 12. I got a suit with pinstripes, and I read the sporting news every day. And I watch out, make sure that I ain't gonna lose no pay, because I'm a Yankee left-hander. Last year my record was 3-4-14. I'm gonna do better this year. I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna push down that old ERA. I'm a Yankee left-hander, and our family life is exciting. Yes, sir, I say to you, Michael Burke, if you don't know where the action is, come down to the bullpen. That's where it's happening. Oh, I am a Yankee left-hander, ba-ba-boo-boo-boo-doo-doo. And I got lots of friends on the staff. Boo-boo-doo. I know a shortstop, an outfielder, and 2 first basemen. But a couple of guys been sent down to Richmond. But ba-ba-ba-da-doo, ba-ba-da-da-doo-doo-doo. Hey, that's not bad. That's a good tune. That's even better than The Bear Missed the Train. Replete with meaning. I'm a Yankee left-hander. Oh, wait a minute. You haven't heard the rest of the story. Guy dropped his kazoo down into that corner pocket. Well, what did he do? What would a good kazoo player do at that point? Well, he did what? Yeah, he just reached right in. He reached in for the kazoo, and his hand stuck in the pool table. Well, they hollered around, yelled, especially since there was a game going on at the time. And there was a little unpleasantness in the Silver Dollar Sportsman's Tavern. And then suddenly the fire sirens in the community of 7,200 screamed, bringing out the town's volunteers. Armed with axes, firemen took just a few minutes to break open part of the pool table and free Michael Burke's by then swollen hand and his precious kazoo. Burke was happy, but the tavern owner said that he would charge him $750, which is the cost of a brand new Brunswick Bulky Collier's standard coin-operated pool table. Why, I'd give anything for my art, razzmatazz. Oh, I can see him explaining that at home. You know, I don't know why it is. It's just some nights great stuff happens, and you got to be on hand when it happens. Is there anybody out there who would like to invest in my new musical, the Pentagon Papers? Anybody out there? Just give us a call here at the station. We'll enlist you. We'll and I'll tell you this: if you invest in it, you can at least be there on the opening night. That's probably as long as the play would last. But what do we care? Think of the fun we'd have. I mean, knowing all them chorus girls, running around, chasing them up and down the aisles out there in Philadelphia, places like that, Oh, I am Daniel Ellsberg. Rink-a-tink-a-tink-a-tink. In the last act, you have this jury, see? And it composed of, a whole lot of dancers and stuff. And we'd have Michael Kidd or somebody like that, or Gower Champion, choreograph the jury. And they would all come out, and, it's just an exciting idea, And the heavy, of course, you'd have to have heavies. We already got the heavy. You know who the heavy is, of course. Who? Oh, no, not Nixon. No, you got to get a real heavy. You get I've got Sid Caesar lined up. And Caesar comes out and plays the chief of staff. See, and he has the temerity to accuse, we've got it. It's going to be good. Really good. Really good. It'll be a good show. By the way, speaking of good shows, we'd like to salute a little cultural development in Albany, Georgia. Of all places, Albany, Georgia. Cultural development. Owners of a cable TV company are still scratching their heads, and we're quoting here a UPI bulletin about, quote, a very explicit silent stag movie that they gave their subscribers gratis in the middle of The Rookies TV series last night. Now, you've seen The Rookies. I mean, any of you guys that are cops out there, did you ever see a funnier show in your life than The Rookies? Those guys are running the whole police department. They're all rookies, you know. You ever see that? But it's kind of nice. They jazzed up the second part of the show right after the commercial when it kind of sags in the middle sometimes. You know, when the guy's wife, the rookie's wife, is always captured by the kidnappers. And, they got to fly him in. All shows today, the mandatory thing in every show today has to have a helicopter scene. You know, every show, it's a helicopter scene. It's important. And, at that point, of course, there's an old TV Hollywood rule of thumb. It says, when in doubt what to do, pan to helicopter. See? Picture a helicopter. Even when there's no helicopter, involved in the film, it's kind of good just throw one in there. So, nevertheless, at that moment when the rookies is starting to sag, they threw in this great film. Now, if you understand, the cable television is not the same as a little secret thing. This is the whole area of Georgia was getting this fantastic film. Well, needless to say, I'm just sick about the whole thing. Peter Freehoff, manager of the television cable company, said today, and we quote him again, "We know what happened, but we don't know exactly how or why it happened. We don't know where that damn film come from. All of a sudden it just showed up, and I'll tell you this. Cablevision subscribers in this area saw about 12 minutes of the incredibly fantastic blue movie featuring 2 men and 2 women involving in certain gymnastics. It appeared over WDHN TV, and it was very exciting. Mr. Freehoff would not comment where the stag film was being shown when it was accidentally switched into the circuit. He wouldn't say what they were showing it for." George. An engineer was sitting on the board, see? He didn't know what was going on. He was just sitting there, when all of a sudden the phone rang, and he picked it up, and the viewer came on the line and said, "What kind of filth are you running down there? I can't stand any more of this." At which point, for the first time in 2.5 hours, the engineer looked up and saw what was on the monitor screen. At that point, he probably called everybody he knows and says, "Hey, look what we got on there, friends. If you think TV is for kids, watch this." But nevertheless, they were a little disappointed in Albany, Georgia. They only received 8 complaints. Well, I shouldn't wonder. I mean, with the general level of television, especially shows like The Rookies, probably most of the viewers at that time were quietly in slumberland, sitting there waiting for the next exciting Alpo commercial to come on. The biggest star today on TV is Morris. You know that. You know Morris? He's bigger than Vince Edwards ever was. His best days. All right, hey, listen, I'll ask you a bit of trivia. You see all these guys that are making these pitches every night for these so-called nostalgic great rock hits of the 50s and all that stuff. That stuff is growing all over television. It's like TV, nighttime TV has developed a fantastic case of acne. It's on every channel all the time, And there's one guy that comes on and says, "I'm Ed Kooky Burns, and I went to this Ginchie." No, he says, I used to go to dances like that, and they were the Ginchiest. Whatever the hell that means. I was alive in the 50s. I don't remember that phrase, the Ginchiest. No, well, that's a TV writer's phrase. And you heard him say that? They were the Ginchiest. All right, I'll ask you a trivia question. What show was Mr. Burns on where he got the name Kooky? La-da-dee-dee-dee. And what was his occupation in the show? Now, that's really trivia, I'll tell you. That was trivia while it was going on. I mean, yeah, what is the date? Oh, for heaven's sakes, it is, isn't it? Oh, no wonder I'm nervous tonight. Have you noticed the intense nervousness tonight? Not nervousness, jumpiness, and a tendency to sing about bad stuff. To take a very sardonic view of the world, right? Have you noticed that? Well, I'll tell you why this is so. This is the date, right? March 7th, correct? Well, you know that this is the anniversary of the day that I had one of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life happen.
marches. I knew there was something wrong with this day. You know what it was? Better not tell. Okay. Well, I better not, because there's kids listening. And I don't want to give any kids any wrong ideas. Well, I'll tell you what happened this day. It was a very bad thing. Well, it just like almost all of our major traumas that occurred to us in our lifetime, this occurred when I was, just a kid, unable to fend off major traumas. At this point, I'll tell you, they can drop, I get hit by 6th Avenue airmail every hour on the hour. Yeah. Hey, listen, who is the guy that says, "We in garbage"? Who is that? Yes, he says, "We gentlemen in garbage." Well, for those of you who don't know much about New York, 6th Avenue Airmail Express is when you get struck heavily about the shoulders with 6th Avenue garbage hurled from the 4th or penthouse floor of some of the more elegant apartments along 6th Avenue. But nevertheless, I'm walking along there, and I'm thinking about that. I don't suppose that matters to you, do you? I mean, most of you don't know what garbage is. You realize, do you know that he's not kidding? You know that the actual pronunciation is garbage. It's a French expression that came out of the Alsace region. And are you aware of why it is garbage? Well, the whole concept of garbage was created by a man called Monsieur Jean-Pierre Garbage, who was a gentleman from the Alsace region who created that concept. At that point, people had what they call middens. Yes, that very early, in the early days of the caveman, he did not have garbage as we know it. He threw the clamshells out in the back of the cave, and they were called midden heaps. At no point were they referred to as garbage heaps. And for years and years, the midden, it really was a fallacy. They call it now the midden fallacy. For years, the midden fallacy persisted until one day somebody threw some potato peelings, 2 heads of shad, which incidentally was a popular fish in the Alsace region at the time, 2 shad heads. They threw some radish tops and several cans that had contained pâté de foie gras. This was hurled out of the window of a chateau in a town in Alsace, and underneath the window, Jean-Pierre Garbage was walking his dog. He was struck heavily by the various items that were hurled out of the window, and he, "Sacre bleu," is what he hollered first. The guy looked down and says, "C'est quel?" And he says, "Garbage, garbage, manum de plan garbage." At that point, it caught on. You know how certain fads catch on, and they began to call anything. It was sardonic at first. Anything you threw out of the window was called garbage. And now, of course, today the word has filtered down through the various languages, and we know it now as garbage. It's not nearly as elegant, though, as garbage. So you can learn a lot from watching commercials. You just come to me. Did you know that there was a man, are you curious, that there was a man named Francois Johann Saxe who invented the whole concept of sex? He was a Belgian, lived outside of Antwerp. And in fact there is, yes, prior to roughly 1814, that the concept of sex as we know it today was totally unknown. And that's why you find that sex is not even referred to in early Elizabethan dramas. There are things called romps. There are things, for example, Boccaccio's Decameron does not even mention the word sex. It talks about things like nightingales and abbesses and, that kind of stuff. They never mention the word sex. It did not come into being until around 1814, when Augusta Saxe, actually it was S-E-A-X-E, umlaut E. At one night, fantastic night in the spring of 1814, he discovered the whole concept of sex. And again, curiously enough, since he spoke both Flemish and French, he also spoke a little Walloon. He leaped to his feet and hollered, "Sacre bleu!" At which point the phrase became again, people used to say when they were a little hanky-pank in the bushes, again, it was a sardonic remark, they were sexing, or soxing, it was called. Later, the word began to go through various the various types of evolution. Today we use the word sex. However, even Masters and whatever that chick is that he works with, they don't even know this. But we have done considerable research here in this corner, these various philological adventures, which is not the same as philately, which is collecting bottle caps. Things like knee-high bottle caps and stuff like marzipan chocolate and all that. But that's beside the point. I seem to be boring you, Miss Brown. Well, that's the trouble with you. You're not you always claim you're a student, and then when I start giving you information, you slowly fall asleep, lean over sideways, and knock the phone off this hook there. So watch out. We want to have that phone completely ready so that when Mr. Saltzman calls and fires me, he want to be able to get right through, right in here. We don't want to have him go through Jerry or any of them guys out there, okay? But, oh, yes, you want to know what happened on this night. I got off into these esoteric ramblings here. No, I'm very serious about the word garbage. And for those of you who can care to look it up, you'll find that he is in most of the really complete world encyclopedias. Garbage, Jean-Pierre Garbage. The real history of mankind is rarely studied. Unfortunately, that's why most people are so bored with history. Because you do nothing but mess around with wars, and I never could get excited over the Whiskey Rebellion. Although there was one hell of a whiskey rebellion in my Aunt Min's house one night when my Uncle Carl, well, that's another story, but she did rebel, I want to tell you, threw his teeth down the air shaft. But it was all because of whiskey. Incidentally, his favorite whiskey, if you're curious, was Jim Beam. Yes, the whiskey of connoisseurs and serious drinkers. Yes, Uncle Carl was that. And but that, outside of that, I found history rather dull for the most part. I remember getting a little excited when we arrived at that period in history called the era of good feeling. It was so unusual that there was good feeling in the world that they've even made it a historical epoch. You notice that, the era of good feeling, which lasted for 27 minutes on a June afternoon in 1813, and it's made all the history books. Yeah. The president at that time was Marcel Polk. And actually, very few of you know that his real name was Marcel. He was working in the White House under an assumed name because he knew anybody named Marcel would never get elected president at that time. Because Marcel meant a curling iron that you curled your hair with, to Marcel your hair. And that was a bad connotation at that period. Because Daniel Boone was still walking around. Anybody named Marcel was in trouble with a guy named Daniel Boone walking around. And Jim Bowie and, John Wayne and all those guys were big in those days. So he changed his name to James Polk, which is a kind of a nondescript name. But it got him elected, which is better than your name. Look where yours has gotten you. You got fired from Macy's even. But nevertheless, history was kind of a boring thing, see? And so we kept wandering around. The War of the Roses, too. I never could figure out, War of the Roses. We often have those. I live down the village, and you see them once in a while on a Saturday night, throwing flowers back and forth at each other. And that's, although generally it isn't roses that are used, they tend to run to nasturtiums down in the village. However, the facts of the matter are, if the case were known, history has been somewhat boring and dull. Now, if you had a chance to study the life of Saxa and write an essay upon the epical night that he discovered sex, that would make history exciting. And if you could discover, did you know what the guy's name? I'll award you a brass figligee with bronze oak leaf palm if you can tell me the name of the guy that invented the toilet. There was a guy that invented the flush toilet. He did. Fantastic name, too. Now, I won't even bring that up. But his name has gone into history. That's right. I swear. That's right. Now, if you hadn't seen that in Time magazine, you wouldn't believe me if I told you that. That's right. And you still think that I'm kidding about Monsieur Garbage. You do believe that. And I'm sure that you believe, you're firmly convinced that I make it up the whole story about sex. And one day, you're going to read it. It's going to be a long, big story about his 428th anniversary. It's going to appear in Newsweek, and you're going to forget I told you, and you're going to come and send me the piece and the clipping. Yeah, I know. All about that. Listen, I invented a kazoo, and idiots keep sending me notes about people who play kazoos, as if I, But nevertheless, history tends to be very boring. And my head used to go to sleep in history class. That's all right, we got time. My head would go to sleep in history class. And on March the 7th, many eons ago, a traumatic experience happened to me as a result of the general boringness of history. I was a sophomore in high school. And at that time, we were going through a thing called European history, which is even more boring than real history. I'm going to tell you, we were going through all things like the Treaty of Ghent. Now, that was an exciting treaty. I'll tell you, it just made fantastic reading. Remember the Treaty of Ghent? That's spelled with a G-H, Ghent. Well, this teacher I had, a lady named Miss Breifogel, had a thing on dates, and you had to remember things like when the Treaty of Ghent was first proposed. Then later, you had to write down when it was first and finally signed. Then we had to do something about what the date of the Hanseatic League was. Now, what the hell, the Hanseatic League? All I was interested in was the American and the National League. And she, lays this Hanseatic League on us. And so, all these dates, I was having trouble for, remembering Don Calloway's batting average, much less trying to remember when they, messed around and signed the Treaty of the War of the Roses, see? So I couldn't do, it was a fantastic problem. So I figured out a tremendous way to solve the problem. I had a wristwatch. It was a Westclox that had been given to me for Christmas. And I cut out a small round piece of paper that fitted right over the wristwatch's face. And on the face, I wrote down the date that the Treaty of Ghent was proposed. I wrote down the date that the Hanseatic League was finally formed, what the chief batting averages and who the star pitchers were in the Hanseatic League. I wrote all this stuff down, see? And I'm sitting there doing, and sure enough, all the questions come up on an exam, and I'm sitting there knocking them off, see? And I'm keeping a sharp eye out, and I'm writing all this stuff down. Everything's going groovy, and for the first time in my life, history is fun, I'm just writing those dates down as fast as they're whipping them out on the exam, see? When all of a sudden, I sense a presence behind me. I was caught up, swept up in the excitement of writing the dates down, and a voice said, Gene, would you please tell me what time it is? May I look at your watch? Oh, my God almighty. And she just pulled my elbow back, and she says, I see, it is August 15th, 1814. Mm-hmm. I see. That's one of those date watches, too. It keeps dates, doesn't it? Well, I felt an electric shock go through me. It was just, you ever had that terrible feeling of suddenly being caught? It was an electric shock, literally. And I sat stunned. And I don't remember, it was just like the lights went out. And 5 minutes later, I'm in the principal's office. And 15 minutes later, I'm home. I was home for 1 solid week. I was what they call expelled. I had my own little spring vacation. March 7th. Oh, beware the Ides of the March 7th.